to sell well the idea of the Spanish cuisine, it's just also important to sell well the idea of a Spanish way of life. I'm from San Sebastian, in Basque Country, and in San Sebastian it's very easy just to really get involved in food because everybody cooks to celebrate. Everybody cooks. Everybody's thinking in the next meal. Everybody's just cooking is important for everyone in 80s. I mean, the Nouvelle Spanish cuisine and especially the Basque cuisine was really a first thing. It was just very important and interesting, and someone like me when I was young really affected. So also a very important moment historically in Basque Country and in Spain. It was just the time with the dictatorship actually die for a new way of understand life and a new way to live their life. Democracy start, and I think that chef also wants to show that Spanish cuisine and Basque cuisine has to be different, had to be at the level of some other countries. A chef was just the time where we also wanted to become part of Europe more than anything else, right? Because we have been just kind of another country that was just kind of marginate the southern Europe, that didn't have democracy, that didn't have a way to express, and it was just time for us just to be able to express ourselves. Yeah. I mean, when you are in Spain, as a Spanish chef, you don't need just to express your Spanishness because it's inherent in you. You need to express that Spanishness in order to be recognized for the people that eat your food. Our way of cooking, of expressing ourselves, is taken completely different in this country to Spain, because you don't need to translate yourself in Spain. You had to do whatever you feel comfortable. There are traditional chefs in Spain. There are people. There are chefs that just want to work with other cultures, techniques and ingredients, or actually maybe has been part of the background. If a Spanish chef go to, I don't know, to Germany or to India, and they will take ingredients from those countries and will be part of the way of cooking. And that has been what French chefs have done for years, and was well accepted here in the United States when they did it. I think it's a little different for a Spanish chef. I think that Spanish cuisine is taken more like an ethnic cuisine.
Right.
And an ethnic cuisine is a cuisine that had not evolved. It's just done. It has been just created for years and generations. It has been just one way or the other has been affected for different culture in the past, but not in the present. No because the globalization had affected recently the way of cooking it, right? So I felt definitely that there's a big difference between cooking there, cooking here, how the food is received, how a chef is received there versus here. Food of ingredients for any other country in the world, and still it's just your own way to express yourself. You don't have to make your recipe more Spanish because you don't need it. People will accept it or not, but they're not using you like you are or not in a Spanish restaurant. You are expressing yourself as a Spanish chef, as a chef first, right? That's why when you come to this country, it's a little bit of the struggle for people that have their own identity as a chef and cook a certain way and come to this country. They understand that if they use certain ingredients that are not, or even techniques that are not taken by the public, like Spanish, are not are not Spanish itself. People don't conceive that are Spanish. That is also a boundary. That is one of my fights, trying just to have a restaurant that is taken as any other restaurant that is not ethnic. That's a little fight for me. But we are really
without being ethnic.
yeah, but no, but without being pretentious either. I don't want to be pretentious, but yes, we want to be recognized. You work 12 hours a day. You make everybody work that hard, and everybody do it with passion. And sometimes it's not for money. It's just to be recognized. Like, hey, we really are trying just to do something different because I think there's a space to do it in New York. Let's do it. Of Spanish chefs that have already come to the United States, and they don't understand very well what the Spanish cuisine is how the Spanish cuisine is taken, is understood. They struggle really because they don't understand how that is Spanish. But also that has a lot to do with what is the notion of the customer itself. How the people think Spanish cuisine is, or not just Spanish cuisine, Spanish culture is taken. When we come to the United States, as I came just like almost 15 years ago, it was kind of weird because it was weird. It was kind of weird to understand. We really had to think that what happened to any other Spanish chef when they come here is just that there's a big difference between when the people expect from the Spanish cuisine and from what the chef cook and the people eat in Spain these days. You know what I mean? This has changed a lot in the last 10 years, really, because now there's just a very nice tapas restaurant that basically serve a lot of the food that you can find in Spain. Everything has to do with perception. So I feel that you can use basically any technique. Because technique can be translated, can be adopted very, very easy to any way of, any kind of cuisine. But I felt that if you really use something that is very specific from a country and an area, and you just highlight it in your menu, it's going to be very difficult to be perceived as truly and really Spanish cuisine. That's the other part. When you go to other countries, really foreign or restaurants normally are not very high end in all sense, in terms of interior design, in terms of food, but in the United States you find that in general. That is maybe the biggest difference between the United States and especially in New York to some other countries, right? You go to France and it's difficult to find a super high-end Chinese restaurant, right? You find maybe a couple of them, but really don't. And Spain is having the same thing. How many high-end Chinese restaurants you can find? Not too many, but you can find a lot of cheap, maybe decent places where they do decent cuisine, but really with a place where you will find a low check average and have some certain limitations in terms of just expressing themselves. If they want just to do the best that they can do in China, it will be much more difficult to do it because the people tend not to accept them like one restaurant of that caliber, right? And I felt that the diner in the United States, especially in New York, is just more open to eat different food from different places and different backgrounds, and I felt that in general they know more about variety, no doubt about it. About quality, there's I don't know about that because quality is just something very subjective to what is quality. But the amount of variety is incredible, and you cannot find them in Spain. The one that stay in this country, I never traveled to Spain. They don't really know. It's just they know what they have tried, and also you find so they will go and they will expect to have, they will like just to be transported to Spain and know about the country and the culture by going to the restaurants, right? And then you have the restaurant, the people that went to Spain years ago. I'm talking about guests that have been in Spain 30 years ago, 4 years ago. I have a very old-fashioned or old memories of what Spain used to be, when Spain used to be different, and that is sometimes is not the kind of Spain that we feel more proud about. The Spain of 4 years ago or 50 years ago, you know what I mean? When we were in the middle of the dictatorship, and we were doing just, we were in the middle of the struggle. We were where we were, but we were not where we wanted to be. These people go to a lot of tapas places, they enjoy it, they like it, but they have a more clear idea of how Spanish cuisine should be, or restaurants or are in Spain. So those new tapas restaurants that we open these days, have a lot to do with their experience in Spain. Now, there are the people that go with larger budgets, and these people just not just go to Spain, go to France, go to China, go to India, go to wherever. They go to so many countries, and they appreciate quality on top of anything else. Doesn't matter where this culture comes from, And I think these are the ones that can recognize a more sophisticated sense of the Spanish cuisine, not because they can or not, it's because they have access. They have access and they can recognize it. What happened in the United States is just that with Spanish cuisine, we are in the middle ground. Really, I think that for the last 10 years, we are taking with a more consideration and more acceptancy, and the people has become a trend to go to a Spanish restaurant, especially a tapas restaurant. But still, we do not have the cachet of the French or Italian or Japanese restaurant, and that position. At that point is where we are, and where we are really working hard to really achieve that recognition. I think that little by little we are, and it has been, I think, a struggle for the last 30 years in that sense, because the last 20 years at least, we have had restaurants in Spain that have been recognized for all world, What I mean, we have the most well-known is chef in the world, like Ferran Adrià, or also another like Omar Arzak with 3 Michelin star. Like, really, Spain has become in the last 15 years the most exciting place to eat. High-end cuisine, or even traditional cuisine or light cuisine. The base for that is just because we have a great ingredients, a great culture, and a great gastronomic culture that have to do with the fact that every region expresses itself in a different way. Now, the last 20 years has been evolving, because there's a movement now in Spain that is really just trying to go take the tradition and modernize it, and there are people that don't even want to use the tradition anymore, just want to do their own expression of their own cuisine. So there's a lot going on. There's two different movements in Spain, and they are very strong. I think that one complement each other. The whole concept of high-end cuisine has changed that much in the last 15 years, because the economy is not really helping to create this kind of restaurant, and also because the people have changed. The technology and the way that the people run their life, people want high quality cuisine serving in a very casual way too. So everything has been changed. So we always are trying just to catch up to what is the concept that will work better. So the tapas concept, I think that is the one that help us to express ourselves in a better way. But I feel that the way for Spanish cuisine to succeed here is just to maintain doing what they are doing, to maintain just. I think that we are having now a natural evolution that's going to evolve for more casual places and for more sophisticated places. I think that I've seen a couple of very good, great Spanish chefs that are coming to New York, are going to come to New York very soon. and I hope they succeed because they're going to give us more, a better, a bigger spectrum of the Spanish cuisine is about. And my personal taken for the Spanish cuisine has been always try just to portray the Spanish cuisine in a more refined way that I have seen when I came to this country. And what I try to say by that is just that when I just came first to this country and I saw the food, how the Spanish food was just done in general, it was just like the old-fashioned Italian cuisine where you really had just to serve food with certain level of quality that they were not that high, but the volume was there, so you can make sure that your countryman comes to it because there's enough food, and the food have enough flavor and enough how can I say it? Spanish flair to accept it, and I think that you can find plenty of those restaurants in Newark, for example, in New Jersey. There's a lot of places where the food is just pretty honest. Actually, very honest. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of it's a lot of food, and the levels of quality is just good. And I think that those places have been very important to maintain a sense of what Spanish cuisine is. Maybe it's not the expression that Spanish chefs that come from Spain, like me and others, want just to have, but I understand that without them, also it's just kind of very difficult to come one day and just express it, because if there's no any notion, you cannot just improve whatever we have here. So what I tried to say is just that evolution had to happen. Start years ago, like 10 years ago, and I felt that now we are just going anywhere. Because the problem of having an ethnic restaurant is just that you have some boundaries where you cannot pass because you are not ethnic anymore. So I don't consider myself an ethnic chef because I challenge myself every day to get better. So if I am an ethnic chef, I'm gonna be stopped every time.
Reach like a level.
Because I cannot get better, and it's not the way that I could. It's not the way that I live my life. If you work over 12 hours a day, and you just investigate, you get better, and you just get new products, so you can get a better level. You cannot just be stretched by boundaries that don't allow you to become better. That's why I assuming that Spanish cuisine is an ethnic cuisine, but I'm not an ethnic chef. You understand what I mean? And I think that the Spanish cuisine had to be evolved. But I also really believe that when somebody have experience, especially the everyday experiences, they have to transform or change the way that you express yourself every day, and especially whenever you cook. In my case, for example, my wife is Korean, and she just cooks some Korean food, and I go to a lot of Korean restaurants. So I learn food. I learn about combinations, about techniques, about ingredients that I use when I do my Spanish cuisine. Sometimes I don't highlight them because I know it's not going to help me, because I know the guest is ready for it. But I had to stress myself, and will come the day maybe where I can do it. You know what I mean? I can just do exactly all what I want when the Spanish restaurant is not ethnic. The only way that a Spanish restaurant or any other restaurant cannot be ethnic is as it become mainstream. A restaurant like the one in Newark maybe didn't do the best job ever, but it still just maintains just the essence of Spanish cuisine, just doing very good in one hand. Basic Spanish cuisine, because by having those restaurants and letting the people know what Spanish cuisine is about, you are making items like paella mainstream, and paella will become another Spanish dish, like I don't know, like spaghetti scampi. That means nothing in Italy, but it's something Italian in you know what I mean? Or what's called it, the shrimp scampi. Well, that is a craziness. It means the shrimp, say it twice. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is just, yes, it's still even that dish helps Italian cuisine in this country because it's just creating just a mainstream, not the dish, but the sense of the traditional traditional American Italian cuisine, right? Just create something there, like a base that help to make Italian cuisine mainstream. And I think that's what we need with Spanish cuisine. Just make it mainstream, make paella, a classic of the American cuisine, make gazpacho a classic of the Spanish cuisine. Then you'll see 100 kinds of paellas, but I think it's fine. It's like language, you know. There are different kind of Spanish, there are different kind of English. You have to accept all as far as they are doing with love, right? I think that's important. So I'm not a purist in terms of things have to be done one way, but there are certain things that are so important for me. For example, you do in Spanish cuisine, you cannot do it with coconut oil. You have to do it with olive oil. You know what I mean? You understand what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So there are certain no written laws that I think that have to be followed in order just to do Spanish cuisine. But I mean, I'm very open to change a lot, but there are things that you cannot change in order just to create a flavor. You see my menu and the menus that I have had in Megas 10 years ago when I opened, and now. Really, I mean, those are where I just try just to always to do with the Spanish cuisine is just take the traditional and renovate it. Now, it's a challenging thing to do because what is traditional in your country maybe it's not traditional in here. Nobody knows. So how are you going to reinterpret something that the people don't know? You know. So as much mainstream Spanish cuisine, easier it's going to be for me to transform it. But I just kind of I have my own way of doing things, and I felt that is the way that I want to do things. And as much as I work with a paella and I have a traditional paella in my menu, or I have some other elements of the Spanish cuisine that are very traditional, I just want to work with items like fideos that are crispy noodles. Or noodles that I just done in all the Mediterranean, especially Valencia or Barcelona, and just reinterpret it in my own way because I think it can be more exciting and better understood for people, and can make me happier too, by do it in a way that I feel more comfortable with. You know what I mean? So it's just reinterpretation of traditional cuisine is important, but I know that I'm well aware that there's some difficulty to reinterpret things that people don't know. So you have to, number one, make sure that the traditional cuisine is just there, but at the same time you have just to express yourself. Because really, a chef that comes from Spain and just work with chefs that are at a certain level and really are just doing such a sophisticated cuisine and come to the United States, if you don't really change your mind and your way of thinking and really understand what the reality and the expectation of the people, you don't understand that, you can struggle a lot. You know what I mean? So I struggled too in the past, but I think that I spent enough years to come with the right formula, and still I'm working on it. But I also really believe that when somebody has experience, especially the everyday experiences, they have to transform or change the way that you express yourself every day, and especially whenever you cook. In my case, for example, my wife is Korean, and she just cooks some Korean food, and I go to a lot of Korean restaurants. So I learn food. I learn about combinations, about techniques, about ingredients that I use when I do my Spanish cuisine sometimes. I don't highlight them because I know it's not going to help me, because I know the guest is ready for it, you know. But I had to stress myself, and will come the day maybe where I can do it. You know what I mean? I can just do exactly all what I want when the Spanish restaurant is not ethnic. The only way that a Spanish restaurant or any other restaurant cannot be ethnic is as you become mainstream.
Nací en una familia que tenían restaurantes y entonces me crié un poco en el mundo de los restaurantes, y luego cuando llegó el momento de tener que hacer algo, pues me decidí por la cocina, y bueno, empecé y la verdad que me gustó mucho, y bueno, así es como todo empezó. Si haces cocina española tal cual se come en España, aquí no acaba de funcionar, tienes que adaptarla un poco, tienes que hacer tus pequeñas adaptaciones, ¿no? Aquí la gente en Nueva York sobre todo es como... están acostumbradas a comer comida, o sea, a poder degustar comida de todo el mundo, y lo auténtico no creo que funcione tanto. Y además también lo importante es que el producto, al final en España tenemos un producto y no es lo mismo de lo que te puedes encontrar aquí, entonces tienes que adaptarte un poco siempre, ¿no? Pero bueno, en eso estamos, intentando aprender un poco cuál es el paladar de los neoyorquinos, ¿no? Y de los americanos, para intentar adaptar lo que es nuestra cocina y que a ellos les parezca interesante. Pimentón a las patatas bravas, ¿no? Que nosotros en España...
¿No lo haces?
No, en España igual haríamos un aceite de pimentón o haríamos, yo qué sé, pero nunca le pondríamos pimentón como hacen aquí, ¿no? Los americanos les gusta poner como un poco de paprika o picante en la misma patata, ¿no? Cuando la sacan de la freidora, pues eso sería un ejemplo. O por ejemplo, en España somos muy básicos en cuanto a los sabores, porque tenemos un gran producto y entonces... no sé, son como sabores mucho más dedicados directamente al producto, ¿no? Y aquí es como que necesitan más, pues, que en los platos haya más contrastes de acidez, que haya siempre varios tipos de texturas, y bueno, es un poco a lo que intentamos adaptarnos aquí, intentamos aprender un poco de lo que ellos quieren para hacer eso, ¿no? Intentamos que sea muy auténtico. Nosotros lo que tenemos es un base menu, o sea, como es un menú básico con todos los clásicos españoles que son muy cercanos a bueno, casi te diría que son completamente auténticos. Y lo que sí que luego tenemos es un menú que lo hacemos según el producto que nos encontramos en el mercado, ¿no? Vamos al Green Market y buscamos los productos que hay de temporada, lo más local posible, y entonces de ello intentamos hacer nuestros menús. Y entonces ahí es donde nos tenemos que adaptar un poco también a la cocina neoyorquina, siempre pensando con nuestra base de cocina española, ¿no? De lo que nosotros comeríamos ahí, ¿no? Entonces yo qué sé, pues ahora por ejemplo que hay una verdura que se llama kale, ¿no? Que es como una col de invierno, pues nosotros hacemos nuestro trinchat, que es un plato súper tradicional que hacemos en el norte de Cataluña, pero también lo adaptamos con, yo qué sé, con otro tipo le ponemos alguna salsa que tenga un poco de acidez y que lo cambiamos un poco, lo adaptamos un poco a los gustos de aquí, ¿no? En España ha habido un boom muy fuerte con la gastronomía, ¿no? De todo lo que es, bueno, Ferran Adrià como que fue un poco el que empezó todo lo que es la nueva cocina, ¿no? Española. Y bueno, y detrás de él pues han seguido un montón de cocineros, muchísima gente que han seguido haciendo un poco cocina basada un poco más en las nuevas técnicas y, ¿no? Productos un poco. Ahora la cocina española también en España está un poco también inspirada también por productos de otras partes del mundo también, ¿no? Que cambia un poco todo eso. Lo que sí que creo es que los españoles que estamos fuera de España, lo que sí que tenemos que intentar es de alguna manera no olvidarnos de nuestra tradición, ¿no? De que al final, para poderlo hacer auténtico, tienes que intentar siempre tener la vista puesta en las recetas y en los productos que siempre se han hecho en España, ¿no? Y bueno, eso es lo que intentamos un poco, por lo menos lo que yo intento. Aquí es un performance seguro. Cada día es un día distinto, ¿no? Y cada día, pero yo creo que en cualquier tipo de restaurante de cocina, ¿no? O sea, es como que es como una obra de teatro, ¿no? Cada día vas y tienes que hacer un performance distinto, ¿no? Y es como... Y eso es súper bonito, ¿no? De la cocina, que nunca es monótono y que siempre haces Pero no sé si hay tanta diferencia entre cocina española y cualquier otro tipo de cocina. Yo creo que en cualquier cocina, ¿no?, del mundo cada día es como algo distinto, ¿no? La verdad que en Nueva York es como... la gente es muy sofisticada también, ¿no? Es muy sofisticada. Pues eso, que nosotros en Nueva York intentamos... O sea, que la gente aquí en Nueva York es como muy, ¿sabes? Está muy acostumbrada a probar cosas y entonces creemos que es más fácil. Luego cuando vamos a otras ciudades seguramente nos tendremos que adaptar más ¿no? Y bueno, y la prueba de fuego la tenemos ahora con Washington, ¿no?, que estamos abriendo ahora el restaurante y a ver cómo tenemos que adaptar, ¿no? Y ver a ver lo que a la gente le gusta.
I used to think to myself, when I get to Paris, in my brain, I know I'm going to become Parisian, I'm going to move, and I'm going to love it. And I'm not going to be able to I can't stop myself. And I went to Paris, and I love Paris. It's a beautiful city, food's phenomenal, and what have you. But I didn't feel the same love that when I stepped into Barcelona, and I was like, oh my God, I mean, my former life, whether you believe it or not, had to have been here. I feel so connected here. I feel so whatever. And that was like immediately 20 years ago, 1990, I was 22, let me date myself. I went to Barcelona, and I went to a tiny wine bar. They had great ham, great cheese, beautiful wine. That's all they had. They didn't make anything else. They didn't cook. They didn't put a show on. It was just a little thing. I had the best time of my life. I thought it was just amazing. And I said, I'm going to open a place like this. I'm like, this is what I want. You know, in this life, if you want something that you can't find, you make it yourself. You invent it. So I came here and I said, oh, gung ho. I was 20. I'm going to do this. Da-da. The only ham was jamón serrano. And jamón serrano, like,
Not so good.
the only wine was Marqués de Cáceres,
Okay.
which is the oldest, you know, one of the older Rioja houses. And I'm not knocking Marqués de
No,
Cáceres,
but it's some of the biggest.
but I mean, it's Marqués de Cáceres. The only cheese was like really bad manchego, not even aged and from different producers. And I say the only, I mean, you have to work hard. But this was like the options here.
It was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, so there was no opening something artisanal, and my brain was way ahead of the curve in terms of what was here. And so that was like, you know, didn't work out. But, you know, I just shelved it and said, keep it in the back of my mind, something I want to do someday. I'll get to it. Like I say, one of my 1,000 projects that I want to do. 18 years later in 2008, we have to thank Jose Andres, which is a very famous Spanish chef in D.C., who's doing wonderful things and really ambassador for Spanish cuisine in this country. He figures out a way to work with a company in Spain to overhaul their procedures to make ham according to USDA standards, which I think is completely absurd, but it's a conversation. And ham is born, and ham is into this country now. And wow, when you do that, the amount of Spanish wine that we can get now is like phenomenal. I mean, I know little producers in Ribera Sacra who were dead for 20 years, not even making wine, and now we can have their wine on the table. You know, I was in Ribera Sacra a couple of years ago with my good friend, and we're visiting these producers who are like making small quantities. They have like, 4 hectares, and they're making all the wine, and we can get some of that. That's amazing. I mean, you just can't. Technology can have its drawbacks, but the fact that you can drink something from somebody from another country a long way that you'd never get a chance to touch, that's amazing. That's just great. Yeah, and that's what helps us become more authentic and real with our cuisines here, whether it be French, Chinese, Spanish. You name the culture, is that we can actually almost get the same thing. What you can repeat, and this is the difference between Spanish culture and probably all other ones, especially if you visit in different countries, is the way they eat. When they eat, and the way they eat. And the way and the when is really the heart of Spanish food. And once you decipher that, that's actually not transferable. And that's the issue I have with Spanish food in this country. At the heart of Spanish food is para tapear. Tapear means the process of going with friends from one place to another place to another place, picking up a few, losing a few, seeing people you know, seeing bartenders you know, seeing the whole thing, and having small bites, and having small glasses, and moving on. It's simply not done here. It's not done here for a number of reasons. It's not in the culture to do that here. It's in the culture to make a reservation at 8:30. But the Spanish will go out all night and somehow miraculously wake up and go to work. And and it's not just the siesta, because a lot of places siesta is disappearing because they're cutting back on that to try to become more productive, so to speak. But nobody can live that lifestyle here. We're just not wired that way. It's in the blood. So that's the difference. So when you go to a tapas bar and you have beautiful food, a lot of it sometimes they'll give you. Tapas means on top of your glass. So they used to put something on top so you would continue to keep drinking. So they offer you a little something. New York City, right? You can't give food away. It doesn't exist. So really, you can't recreate a whole system, a whole ecosystem of culture where this is what people do. Immigrants come to this country. What do immigrants do? Immigrants look for a place that they feel safe and at home. So the ghettos were formed, other neighborhoods were formed. You're an Italian person comes off the boat, and you say, you're a WAP, meaning without papers. That's all that means. And you say, what am I going to do? Am I going to move to a Spanish neighborhood? No, they're going to speak my language. How am I going to get help? I don't even speak English. So they move to a neighborhood where they see their people. Their people are there. Starts the comforts of their old places come there. So the food becomes the first thing. And the religion, the church, or whatever religion it is. All that stuff becomes part of the neighborhood. And then it's a necessity, and it brings it. Why is prosciutto so ubiquitous and prominent and well known in this country as opposed to jamón ibérico or pata negra? Well, the Italians had a bigger constituency. At any rate, Spanish cuisine becomes like any other cuisine. You go out for Polish food, you go out for Chinese food, you go out for Italian food, you go out for Spanish food. So that part of it makes sense. Why? Because at the heart of it, real Spanish food is comforting. It's all comfort food. When I go to a Polish place, I get kielbasa, and I get bigos, and I get potatoes, and I get all this stuff that's very comfort food. Comfort food translates. Comfort food translates. A person who's never had mac and cheese from another country will come here and have mac and cheese and go, that's great. Because it's comforting. Even if they've never had it before. And it's the same if you have a French stew, or a bouillabaisse in the south, in Provence, and you have a fish stew. It translates. You've had something like this in Portugal, in Porto. You've had something like this in one of the ports in Cadiz. You've had something like this off the coast of Maine when they make a chowder. And so all the aspects of the comfort food really translate no matter where you go, I feel. And so that's why Spain was embraced. All of it was embraced. Now, you've got an amazing perfect storm in New York, right? Because what you have is the greatest city on earth for many reasons, and a lot of problems, but everybody has problems, but because all the cultures were accepted. You get on a train, and if you are a New Yorker, everybody respects that. You're working hard to your dream. You're working hard for your dream. You're working hard for your dream. You're working hard for your dream. You're a New Yorker. We're all in the same boat. And inherently, New Yorkers understand this. And the same way that they're accepting of culture and they're accepting to but tolerate and have good tolerance and understanding that if there's a Spanish restaurant across the street, there can be an Italian restaurant here, and there can be a Chinese one there, and nobody's upset. We can all coexist. That's really unusual. You pick a country like France, in the south of France, you have a large Arab influence from north of Africa, and Tunisia, and what have you, and Algeria, and all this sort of stuff. And there's a lot of tension. Yeah. They don't want that type of restaurant next to a French. I mean, they just don't. It's not the same way. Well, New York is just above it all. We just say, the hell with that. We demand, market system, capitalistic system demands that if you're not good, we're not going to go to you. There's thousands and thousands of restaurants here, and they close all the time. The last time at a restaurant, look it up, after 1 year, it's like 50%. After 1 year, 50% of restaurants close. This is not a... And there are other factors besides that. Those are the facts. But if you're not good enough, the people who would patronize your food can tell. New Yorkers are very smart. You don't have to go to Spain, but a lot of people in New York have gone to Spain. So when they come here and they taste something, they know, it's not the patatas bravas that I know from Madrid in that little corner deli that I went to. Even if I spent 2 months there, that's my experience. I know. New Yorkers are very worldly cultured in many things, especially with food. especially this
to be
food.
authentic.
There has to be truth to it. There has to be truth. And there's no truth, we know right away, and that's what closes. And this is the issue with Spain. Spain is a country, right? It's supposed to be unified. It's not. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of anger, there's a lot of separatism on the table, and there's a lot of resentment for a lot of historical reasons, which we're not going to get into. But when a Spanish person tells you they're from Spain, they tell you where they are from Spain. You are not the quickest person in the United States to say I'm from Peoria. You would say I'm American. That's the first word I pronounce. I'm American. The Spanish don't say I'm Spanish. They'll say I'm Catalan. I'm Galician. I'm Madrileño. I'm Basque. Right away.
Oh, totally.
And it's because they're not as unified as they make themselves out to be. The Spanish are not unified. And so when they came here, instead of unifying, they also did not unify. They splintered. The promotion of Spanish food now is about 30, 40 years too late than it could have been. If you would have had a Spanish restaurant group association and people trying to help each other, let's take the Korean grocer. Korean grocer says, I'm going to open a grocery shop. You are in Korea and you want to come here, whether we're related by cousin or by friend or what have you. Okay, you're going to pay me, you're going to come here, you're going to work this Korean shop, and then I'm going to open another Korean shop. And why do we have 5,000 Korean grocers? They're not all related because their last name is Kim. It's because they decided that this is what they're going to do, and they work together. The Spanish aren't like that. They don't do that. We're from Galicia. When we sit down and talk about the menu, we're going to have a fight. And I mean a fight. The Basque, they don't consider themselves Spanish at all. At all. The Catalan, we are Catalan. Why do we have to pay all the taxes and Madrid gets the breaks? I think Spain's a third world country with benefits. I really do. I don't think it's like this big modern machine. And all you have to do is compare it to a country like Germany, or Sweden, or London, not that country, England, or France even. Compare the countries. Compare the socialistic aspect of it. Compare the economic aspect of it. Compare the technological aspect of it. Spain's backwards. They're still living like the sticks when it comes to like technology. The economy has gone through hell. The construction industry is completely destroyed. There's almost a 30% unemployment rate. I mean, it's a disaster. This is not because they're one of the top countries in the world. They haven't been a top country in the world since the Armada got defeated in 1588.
Okay, so then what gives? Why would they have these modern, like, sleek restaurants?
Well, that's the thing, is that when you go there, it defies all of that when you see the art and what they're doing in terms of graphic design and what you're doing in terms of architecture and what they're doing. And because the Spanish mind, the Spanish spirit is avant-garde. It's always thinking forward. But collectively, they don't do that. And so, what do you have? You got a bunch of geniuses running around, but nobody will sit at the same table. That's Spain. That's Spain in a nutshell. They can argue until the cows come home, and I can show instance after instance after instance. And what you're saying is 100% correct. You've got a great innovator like the great Ferran Adrià, the great genius chef to come out of Spain in the last century, with all the cuisine around him that's 2, 3-star Michelin, Basque, Martin Besatogai, and all these other guys. And yet he still was able to set himself apart from those guys who were well-renowned chefs with the most amazing restaurants. I've been to a few of them, they're amazing. And still stand out and say, I'm going to give you this product, I'm going to give you El Bulli, and I'm going to make this system of food, and we're going to play with it, and I'm going to reinvent it. And every chef on the planet wanted to go and study with him. How did that happen? Exactly. It happened because in Spain is this spirit, this idea of always thinking ahead and always doing something and taking it and reconstructing it and deconstructing it and doing something new and modern. And then this is the definition of modern. And so it's shown itself more in something that's easily translatable and transferable to people, and that is food. I had easily the best evening dining of my life. I was fortunate enough to go to El Bulli. Some of the food was like wowing. You're just like, wow, wow. And some of the food's like, this is bizarre. I've never approach anything like this. The sensation's bizarre. This is weird. And da-da-da. So did that make it the most delicious thing I've ever had? No, the most delicious thing I've ever had, and I always ask people, this is, if you were to die, what would be your meal? My grandmother's cooking for me every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I don't care what I've eaten out there, what I've tried out there, my grandmother's cooking for me. That's the best food I've ever had in my life. But in terms of a magical experience, I believe it's a magical experience. So what happens is people here try to recreate the Spanish experience, recreate the Italian experience, recall some type of memory where you've either had that dish, or you were in that country, or you were in the presence of people who understood that culture, and that brings you to happiness and brings you and connects your memory. And that's what a lot of people do, but a lot of people really fail because they overdo it. They overdo it. And they're not true. They don't really understand what they're doing. But a New Yorker, the average New York diner, has had a lot of good experience with food and different types of food, and a lot of travel, and therefore makes them more educated. That's a double-edged sword, because they're educated because they're exposed to more, but just because you're exposed to more doesn't mean you actually understood what you were exposed to, or understood what goes into doing something. You know, they're very demanding, and I would say that as a whole, and if you look at the magazines, New York Magazine, the New York Times even, they cater to much more than what is just the food. If it was just about the food, that'd be amazing, but it's not. It's about the ambiance, who you're with, who you're being seen, what type of scene is it in this restaurant. Are there people who are similarly dressed to me or similarly minded to me and will have that kind of share those same kind of values? And so the New York dining scene is very two-sided. There's that side that I'm talking about, where they think they're educated about stuff, and really, just because you read a couple of things and you've been to a few places doesn't mean that you're that much more educated. And then there are people who are really into the food. I was at a restaurant recently for a Brett's birthday. The chef was Basque. Not a single thing on the menu was Basque. I think he had one dish which was cod, which is ubiquitously Basque, and it was not prepared very well. And the rest of the food was terrible. And I say that not because I'm trying to bash a restaurant, because I'm not even naming the name of it, but I don't know what they're doing there. But they're packed. All the foodies are in there. And so I can go to the opinion that I'm crazy, or I can go with the opinion that these people don't really understand Spanish food. And from my experience and my understanding, they don't understand Spanish food. It's very misunderstood. Spanish people are very tough. They'll come to my place, and I'll get one of two comments. I'll either get silence,
Is it a good thing or a bad
which is a
thing?
great thing,
Okay.
because there's nothing to complain about. They're not gonna be impressed with you because they know what their food is back home. But if they say nothing, I've won. There's nothing to complain about. Or they'll say something like, "Your tortilla was undercooked," or "Your tortilla was overcooked." Either way, and I'll say that's the style of the house. In other words, every mother makes their tortilla, which is the classic Spanish egg omelet, a certain way. And as a kid, you remember it a certain way. And you only want it a certain way. And if you love your mother's tortilla, no other tortilla is going to be able to compare. It's just not possible. So I want you to get the feeling of having a tortilla that reminds you of when you had tortilla before. It may not be the exact same recipe. It may not be the same taste. But I want it to at least remind you or make you go back and think and connect you back to your experience. And if I can do that, I've done my job. Now, whether you like it or not, it's a whole different conversation. And that is my number one argument for we're not as sophisticated as New York diners as we think we are. That's my number one. That's my proof right there. We're the number one city in the world. Why don't we have a bully here? Why is it that Noma is located in Copenhagen? And, all these places are located in other places. And most of those restaurants that are doing what they're doing in Spanish are still in Spain, because we're not ready for it here.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a perfect on-point example. There's a restaurant that opened called Romero. This guy's a genius. The guy, the chef, he's a genius. He's a surgeon, and he's a chef. He got hit with 1 star from Pete Wells from the New York Times. And I'm guaranteeing to you that Pete completely misunderstood that food. Like, no clue what was going on. As well trained as he's supposed to be and having food experience, he's a critic and all that sort of stuff. He gives Shake Shack 1 star, and he gives Romero 1 star. Now, either this guy's a completely terrible chef, and he deserves the 1 star, or something's amiss in the understanding, interpretation, education of the critic. I'm just going to say that from experience and from people I know, he's completely off base. What's he trying to create? What kind of experience is he trying to create with you and your connection to food? And that's the ultimate question. I think what Pete's saying is, I could care less if I'm not getting pleasure out of it. New York is not ready for that type of food. It's not. And which is not, it's not a negative thing, and it's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. Things take time. Lots of things take time. It's terrible. I mean, we have to try and close that guy down is nuts. We need that. We need the envelope pushed. We need creativity. We need art. We need different types of experiences. We don't need similar types of experiences. I don't need to read about the Shake Shack.
Like really old school Spanish restaurants that are still open.
Those are still comfort food. The way they serve it.
Yeah.
Right? Big plate of rice, whole big roast chicken, lots of chorizo. Connection to old Spain. Connection.
Yeah.
Connection to old Spain. The people who go there know old Spain, and so it still makes a connection to them. And let me tell you something. My mother, God bless her, loves to eat paella every year for Mother's Day, and every year I have to bring her to one of these places, and for me, the food is just not very good. It's very outdated. It's not done with any kind of. It's heavy paprika, heavy garlic, heavy oil, and I just want a lightness in the food that exists. I think that when you want to make something transcendental, you must have connection and understanding of the food. It's not enough to give somebody a recipe and say, you've been making this your whole life, and now you gave me a recipe, and even if I can follow the recipe to a T, the dishes are going to be the same, because they're not.
Experience. What does that mean? Like having lived in Spain? Or
just having that connection, whatever it is. You know, if it's living in Spain, it's living in Spain. It's working with a Spanish chef the whole time, working with Spanish, whatever it is. And it's funny that these old places that we mentioned in the beginning are sort of holding on. And I find it fascinating. Because I don't want to go there. And I've been there. And I go, what was I doing here? And I didn't like the way this tasted. There wasn't anything special about what they did to the food. They should have done more. But then there's going further, and then there's like, you know, making a disaster.
Because you can modernize and have it be a disaster. Or you
like
can
I went to a restaurant and everything that was modernized was terrible.
Yeah.
One was like okay, and the rest of it was like and it's a simple test. You just ask yourself, would I eat here again?
Well, I was born in Colombia. I was born in South America. I was raised in Miami, and my parents came when I was 2. So I started learning about Spain, the culture. I mean, Latin America is in South Florida, and I was always in touch with a lot of Cubans, which are very much in tune with Spain and what it was. But it wasn't something that I never went to Spain when I traveled to Europe, which is odd, because it's the only place practically where you speak the Spanish. It was easy for me to go to. But I went to Italy, I went to Austria, many places, and I said, well, Spain I can do later. And for 12 years, that's all I was dealing with is Spain. My husband is from Asturias, from the northern part of Spain. And so that's how we met in the industry. And I've been traveling to Spain for 12 years, learning about the food, about the culture. And I ended up, I always say I'm like an adopted Spaniard, you know? Just when I go and everyone says, oh yeah, where are you from Spain? And I said, I'm not actually. But once they start talking, they're surprised that I've learned so much. And I guess when you're passionate about something, it's part of my being now. I always say, I don't know if I could, I love coming here and talking to the customers, introducing them to the cheese, what is the difference between an Iberico and a Serrano. So it's something that I just enjoy, and it's become a passion. Yeah, definitely. I wake up every morning and I say, you know, it doesn't seem like work. It's just something that I love to do. Is it Spain or is it Spanish? And that's something that, for me, and when I started talking, they say, oh, it's Spanish food. Do you have, you know, arroz con gandules or different things? I said, no. It's very different. We're talking about from Spain. So it's very Spanish, could relate to a lot of Latin America or things that we see as Spanish influence, but it's really not. So I focus a lot on Spain. I think here, 12 years ago, I remember when the first hams came in, and people started, what is it? Serrano? Is it a prosciutto? Is it? And I said, no, it's a style similar. I mean, it's cured, it's dry aged the same way. It was a lot of education and really teaching people about the Spanish dry cured meats. We had a very strong Italian influence that people know about these products. But for us, Spain, prosciutto, serrano, it's changing. But we did see a big pull in the tapas culture. I think that's really what exploded and how we saw people trying to see what a mordida is, paella, the most traditional dish. People understand that. And you see a lot now. 12 years ago, I mean 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought it was a paella bar. And if you've been to Socarrat, okay, well that exists and he's making different ones. People appreciate that food and now they like it. They're learning about it. We have a lot of people in this store here. We opened it 6 years ago. So when we opened it, it's been a long time flies. And we've been expanded gradually. We opened this cafe, the seating area, and then we did the wine shop, only focused in Spain. And I think as much as you love and you're passionate about something, you transmit it, but there has to be an audience for it. And this couldn't exist if there weren't an audience of consumers that come in and learn and want to learn and are open to saying, well, how do you make a paella? What ingredients do I put in? Give me some suggestions. So there is a strong pull. Of course, we have Peronaria, we have Jose Andres, which also influences media-wise and people like and what we want to try. So I think it is, and it has grown. And it's not only Spaniards that we service with too. I mean, I think our consumer here is about 90% Americans that live here and have traveled to Spain or just have heard about the food or sample. We sample a lot of things here, and that's the way people fall in love with it and ask questions. And so I think that has been a strong point for us to really start to get all of that together. Right. I think it's an interesting point because it's something that we'd say, do you have a restaurant? I said no. It's very tied to products, which are very clean. It's a cheese that's made by this cheesemaker. It's this one. And so we try to make simple preparations so people try that. It's very authentic. A tortilla is a tortilla. Whether you add some or this, but we try to maintain it authentic. And I think that's one of our goals. But there are restaurants that are authentic, and then there are the Peronarias. And even if you go to Spain, you see that dichotomy in the industry. You see a lot of influences that were not used in the cuisine many years ago. So it is, and you see a lot of course, Peronaria with creative and innovative cuisine, and we have such great products, but they do incorporate. It's a tortilla somehow different. Deconstruida es distinta. The aceituna that's, it was an aceituna, it's spherified. And you get that kind of essence of what it was, or those ingredients, but they kind of perfected it in a way to make it art. And I see that as artful, which is what Spain and what I think Enrique is thinking about what you're having and how this could taste like a jamón ibérico and it doesn't look like that, or you're drinking it where, in essence, you've been accustomed to just having the whole piece. So I think you see that in New York, and you have a lot of chefs that are not necessarily Spanish that are playing upon these authentic flavors that come from the roots and really playing around and doing different things that are not, seen as Spanish, traditional Spanish, but they have something about it. The successful ones, I think, touch that essence of nostalgia that you say, I remember that, or I remember that flavor, I remember when I traveled and I went there and I ate that. And so that's the key, and I think, yes, touching upon that. The ingredients speak to themselves. People recognize the brands that we have here, Hugo, Amigo Giuncetta, they recognize that, and we have Perdoro, which is Javier Pepe. And you can see, but this is something that is a reference to Spain, but in a subtle way. I mean, it is part of the culture, it is part of our history, and that was something that we thought about. We said, is it too authentic, too like bullfighting, when we have people that say, oh, I don't like it. No one has commented. He's been in pictures, he's been in media, and Pepe is our playful aspect of Spain. And you have the yellow, the yellow colors, the reds, which we play upon. Just seeing that, but it's not Spain. And I think you have to be Spain. If people that come in here and try our foods, they feel like they remember, and we touch upon that, and we don't have to be Spain with that everywhere. And I don't think there are some places that perhaps, but it's not. I don't think you see many. I mean, if you went to Tertulia, place. It's very. I love it. I think it does it, and it's again. It's a chef that's fallen in love with Spain and has lived there and really trying to transmit the culture of pastelería in Asturias to somehow without it being totally, it's different. But I think people have accepted it that way, and having, the paneles with the sidra, which is nice, and it's introducing people to new concepts or reminding them of what they had when they went there. So I think it's great, and I think it's not a coincidence that you see a lot of these places all the time, because there's a reception to it, and people like it. My mother-in-law makes the best tortilla, and I always say, well, it can't be, but it's our best route of making a great tortilla that people remember and enjoy, and they have. And more than that, it's educating people back and letting them know how you can make it and how you can do that. And we see a lot of people that want to learn. And so it's a winning concept. We hope to open more, and because there is a reception to it. So Spain is I think it's happening. I think the way you're looking around the ag, it's still growing. Yeah. I think tapas had a lot to do with it. I really do, because I think it was the explosion where you saw, traditional tapas. That's where the jamon came in. That's where the cheese. I mean, you found manchego very little, but people remember that because it's the cheese that is mostly sold in Spain. I mean, paella. You have paella in many restaurants. Maybe it's not the traditional way that Valencianos like to serve it, and you have this era of paella in New York City 30 years ago, and now the paella that you have in Sotarat, which is probably closer to a good paella that you have in Spain. It's a dish that's, talk about this construction. Sometimes it's not that great at many places, but it's a dish that reminds you of Spain. So, I think the tapas really created that and keep it going, and traveling to Spain. A lot of chefs, and the whole boom of the chef world, top chefs and people, celebrity chefs that fell in love with Spain. And I think in New York City especially, they are trendsetters. And so they brought that to pepper. They started using it. They caught on, and other chefs use it. So I think that's where they started learning about the ingredients. And now I see a lot of people trying to do, like in the wine world too, their own expressions of the grapes, and not being led by, well, we should do this. And I think now people want to say, well, what is the land? What is the terroir? I want to feel it. When before, perhaps they were making wines for the American palate. The same thing happens with the olive oil. Olive oil used to be very mild, very soft, arbequina, but now consumers want fruity olive oil strong, that they get the flavor, the peppery. So I have seen a change in how people started trying and becoming, educating their palates and what they really love. And I see that the same goes with the cheeses. Cheeses, before maybe the manchego, but now no, they want different flavors. I want something what's new. What can I give the flavors and the story behind it. So I think Spain still has that. Spain still has a lot of artisans, a lot of small producers. We still have that, so I think that's interesting. There is, and there's a lot of influences like before. I mean, avocado or mango or papaya ingredients. I mean, that's not Spanish. That wasn't part of the land. They didn't have that, but now with everything being able to get there, why not? It's part of the culture. You have a lot of Latin American people there. You have a lot of immigration within Spain too that creates that kind of creation of different foods, different feelings. Well, I don't think it's a mistake altogether. It's just not the basis of what it was. And so why is it a big mistake to blend it? Some people are purists and they say, no, I can't. I don't like that. If you speak to my mother-in-law, that's not how we made it, that's not how it is. But it's what's become. My husband is a lot older than I am, and he always says, I want a piece of steak if I want to eat it. I don't want a flavoring of a steak. And they're different, and it's very individual. It's what you like, it's how you see it, and how you experience it. And I think that's what, the Greek cuisine, the art of cuisine, of the chefs, that's what they're playing on. Those reminiscent flavors and their take on their personal take on that dish. And I think they want something different. They want, the story, how we do see that there are people that want different flavors, and how about this cheese? Oh, it's small production, and you like that. And I think, I guess in this media world, you know what everybody's doing at one point of the day. You also want that in the same way with products. Like, who made this cheese? And it's a fourth generation family, and I think we want that story more than what's the price. Or what is it made of? Is it the sheep's milk? Is it a goat's milk? We want to know that. They want a story. They want a story. And I think that makes it personal. That makes it, I went to Italy. I was fortunate to go. For me, again, my husband has a different take on that, and he enjoyed it. but just the place is idyllic, and that's what we were talking about, the experience and enjoying and knowing that this food reminds you of that hand, and it reminds you that oh, this is in the liquid form, you know, serrano con melon, and you eat the liquid and it tastes just like it. So that's the art form that he wants to evoke. And you're like being in his house and you're just seeing the whole organization and how the people, you know, deconstructed and they got all of it. And to me, I appreciated it and I enjoyed it. Yeah. Would I eat there every week if I could? If we could afford it or if we could get the reservation? No. I mean, it's an experience. And I think that's how you should see it more than it's more and seeing, you know, again the whole it's like a ballet. Everything was just coordinated in a way which was great. When my husband tells me stories that his partner passed away in the 70s, and I think it was those people that came that emigrated. First of all, Spanish was not spoken and they didn't speak a lot of English. So it was kind of, it was a struggle to really feel like they're becoming a part of this culture. They couldn't travel back to Spain often because it wasn't as easy to travel, it was expensive. And so for them, it was a way of assimilating and really working in restaurants. A lot of them worked in restaurants, my husband worked in many restaurants, French restaurants. Italians, no, and I think they worked in restaurants in the kitchen, and his partner had actually, it was like a diner. He worked in a diner, making coffee, and he would make tortillas españolas at home, but it wasn't something that he sold to the place. Why? Because it was something very personal, very something that was part of their group when they had gatherings. And, you know, they found each other as, you know, a way of linking and just sharing what they remembered that they had. But it wasn't something that they shared. And now with Spain, no, you see a lot of that. Now it's something that they do want to share. And this is how we have this, and this is how we should make it. And I think that's how it was. And you see those crazy things, or families that don't speak Spanish because, and you see that in the language. It was kind of like, you know, keeping that because we want to be accepted somehow in a way and kind of blend in. So that's part of assimilation, I guess. And now you see a lot more of individualism, that you really want to show who you are, where you come from, where your roots, right? And I think especially in New York, where there's so many cultures. A lot of people say, well, where are you from Spain? And you need to have that somehow. You have to have that connection. People look for that connection because it gives it kind of the basis. It solidifies it. Makes them more confident. Exactly. That, you know, this is okay. I feel.
Always it has to be a time for everybody, right? So maybe now finally is the Spanish time. Spain has a long history of good culinary traditions, and I think it's one of the greatest kitchens in the world, and in Europe we do have quite a bit of we will have our own style of our own flavors. You know, very much Mediterranean as well. I mean, we have our own identity. We have our own pedigree. You know, because I'm from Spain, and I mean, food is like is something that is part of you. You know, when you are raised, when you are 7 or 8 years old and you have the tortilla, the calamares, or the cocido, or the trigo, you know, those flavors is part of you. So, you grow up, you are in another country, and you know, you are missing that, and you thinking about that food, you know. And especially we Spaniards, we are very attached to our food. I see tourists here, after 2 or 3 days, they say, I need to eat Spanish food. I need to have the tortilla or the paella, I have to do, or the jamón or the queso. I have to have it, you know. And I remember many years ago I was a chef in Long Island, and we have lobster, we have shrimp, we have a lot of seafood, but it was an American cooking, right? And I said, wow, I don't know what, I mean, I don't feel like to have it. this food. I mean, I was very good to progress. So what can I do? I mean, I feel like I say, oh my God, I'm talking to myself, you know. I say, wow, let's make a Spanish omelet, una tortilla. So my God, I'm making a Spanish omelet. I say, and I went outside in the patio with a beer, una caña. I felt like, wow, that's what I needed. You know, we are very attached to our flavors. Thing is, when they said Frana Adria is from Spain, the name of Spain becomes popular in this country because unfortunately many people in this country, they don't know where is Spain. Do you understand? So when we see Ferran Adrià in the magazines or whatever, that people are traveling to Spain, especially just to see him and to talk about him, and his flavors are Spanish at the beginning and after is international, of course, from all over. But he's Spanish, and you know, whatever we like it or not, even though he doesn't cook Spanish, put it that way, but his cooking is ingredients from all over the world. He can do things, in his kitchens arrive food from Thailand or from Argentina or from Canary Islands or from Japan or from Iceland, from all over the world. You know, he brings food from over, but after he creates his own thing. But because he's Spanish and he's in Spain, that promotes our food and of course as well promotes our country. My food over here is really traditional Spanish. We don't, some of the places are, we do a little innovations, you know, but the flavors are very real, very authentic, very traditional. We don't do interpretations of the paella. Sometimes there's another story. We play, for instance, we used to do paella with Mexican flavors. We did paella with Indian flavors. And I want to do with all these flavors because rice is the base of the old culture. When I say, okay, today the paella could be Thailand style, Thailandese. But my flavors, our cooking are very, very Spanish indeed.